The Fate franchise and myself have an interesting relationship. Now, I technically have enjoyed most, if not all, of the Fate series in some way or another, which is ultimately why I come back to them every single time another is announced. Though over the years, that excitement I got from, say, Fate Zero or even currently with Heavensfeel isn't what I experience for most of the entries, at least anymore. So I thought to myself, okay, this Lord Elmaloy, I'll give it an honest go. Should it just feel like an okay series like a lot of the past entries have for me, maybe I'll sleep on the Fate franchise for a little bit. But then, in one binge, I finished this show and now I'm hooked on Fate again. This show is incredible, and it's a damn shame it didn't receive the same praise as some of the other entries in this franchise, but I guess when you take a more Sherlock Holmes approach with kind of an emphasis put on lore versus epic battles, it's not as appealing to some, so be it I suppose, but this is my jam. Simply put, I love this anime, and if they kept making more, I'd be foaming at the mouth, ready to dive deeper into this fascinating tale on the Fate mechanics that we're so typically used to seeing, but spiced up in a new direction for storytelling and a lot more emphasis put on details behind the magical mechanics. Really, this series is what if you took Waver Velvet from Fate Zero, make him an adult and he takes a new name, starts teaching up and coming magical students due to his immense knowledge on the subject matter despite not possessing the physical abilities needed to use it, and then he gets wrapped up into Fate-style cases with a very slight Sherlock Holmes angle. Just instead of piecing the clues together alongside the characters all the time, we kinda just follow in the characters' lead as they use their magical mechanics to uncover the mysteries at hand, with the odd chance we pick up on some details ourselves before the punchline arrives. In theory, it's an interesting idea, and in execution, at least for myself, it's gripping through and through. The biggest draw the World of Fate has always had on me is its mechanics and how they could deliver stories you normally couldn't experience, such as the Holy Grail Wars, which are the main driving force to most Fate-related properties. Summoning heroic spirits to fight for a wish-granting device, you probably know the drill. By taking many of those magical abilities or talents we see over the course of a Holy Grail War, but applying them to murder mysteries or simple conspiracy-style stories, it's a match made in heaven and takes that typical detective formula we all know and creates something that immediately stands out as a unique idea. Whether you find said idea entertaining will obviously be a matter of preference, but at the very least, most can probably agree that in theory, it sounds pretty awesome, and for myself in execution it absolutely was. Waver is a fascinating character. Most who watch Fate Zero will probably agree with me saying that. A kid thrown into a war, and rather than becoming the one to lead his servant, he ended up following him, pretty much being the opposite of what everyone expects. He became one of Ryder's devoted followers, and even after all these years, he wishes to see him once again and hopes to prove that he's worthy of following a man as great as him. It's an incredibly gripping narrative even if you have no knowledge on Fate Zero at all. A man so lost in the past and desperately wanting to re-summon his old servant, even though the chances of him even remembering Waver are essentially non-existent. His new name, his new career, his new detective persona, it's just all so bizarre from what you typically associate with Waver from the past, but it shapes his tale into something very unique without feeling like your typical Fate-style anime. Often detective-style storytelling uses clever clues and hints that the viewer can piece together themselves alongside the main characters solving a crime. Sometimes you'll get that aha moment before the story reveals what's actually happened, where with other times you're left pondering until the answer is fully revealed. Either way, this lets the viewer feel rewarded for what's been happening, and feeling as if it's a classic case of detective storytelling, which is why certain series like Sherlock Holmes have survived all these years. The good ones, at least. I'm not talking about the ripoffs that call anything and everything a Holmes tale. Now, with that said, technically this series solves its crime with mechanics the viewers have no connection to, so sometimes you'll think, okay, the reason they solved this was because of something such as, say, mono reading rather than following a footprint. That's just a basic example. But most of the stories have a mystery attached to them, and they do a solid enough job at letting the viewer play alongside the characters. A great example is early on, 3 of the characters, including Apprentice Gray, get stuck in a frozen section of time with no answers as to why. It's mostly them just kind of standing around talking, trying to figure out who did this and why this is happening, but as I was watching this unfold, I questioned if it was either a trap to keep them there so they could reach the Lord, or if maybe they were just valuable due to their various abilities. It's eventually revealed that this shopping center considered them highly valuable, and didn't want them to leave as a default attack due to their magical abilities. This isn't anything difficult to piece together yourself, but it does reward the viewer thinking, even though it's magical mechanics, we get to know enough about them at this point in time, and with what was seen in prior episodes, to potentially figure it out ourselves before someone such as Grey does. One of the best aspects this series has going for is when they all get on the train, which holds a little auction for mystic eyes, which range in rarity, but the higher the quality, the more powerful the eyes and abilities you'll receive. The highest bidder obviously wins, but each year, there usually is a few casualties. A big mystery during this ride is who killed one of the attendees, but there's a multitude of steps to uncover said mystery. Like with any good murder tale, someone gets a lot of evidence stacked up against them, but not everything will obviously add up, or so the viewer should probably think. I can't say I predicted everything during this section, but there was one character who acted in such a way I thought to myself she has to be in on it with our main man in charge, and lo and behold, she was. The way this section of the story is explored is fantastic in every way that you look at it. You'll piece things together and feel like a genius, and then at other points you'll see who was really behind it all and think, oh shit, I didn't see that one coming. There's intense stakes. You don't know who is trying to kill who, what the point of this all is. Can Waver get back his artifact that was stolen from him? A slight piece of cloth from Ryder's clothing that he's kept with him all these years, which is actually his only way to potentially resummon him again. It's a pure adrenaline rush. You can have cases where someone is beheaded and they store their decapitated head in a magical hole to help uncover mysteries of who the hell did this. That's why this anime is so damn cool. If you remove many of the mystical elements seen here, you'll probably feel as if it's a pretty cut and paste series that you'll compare to any detective anime out there. But once you spice it up with severed heads entering magical realms to store evidence, or you have ghostly murders, it sort of turns something that could be generic on its head and becomes one of the coolest anime this season, with a lot of lore being explored. You'll learn a lot about the magical mechanics to this universe, and at times either get familiar takes on murder mysteries, with at others just being outright fate, which is never a bad thing, since having a world with as much magic as this makes it impossible to play by the typical mystery rules, which to me is not a horrible thing, and allows for much more freedom with its narrative. Backed by all the lore that with previous knowledge to this world and many series within it, you get an extended look on fan favorite characters and past battles, with so many facts, meaning someone like me eats it all up. Obviously, if you go into this anime thinking Holy Grail Wars, you'll be incredibly disappointed. Or even if you expect a standard detective mystery that's going to play by all the normal rules, you're also going to leave very disappointed. But if you walk in thinking, it's not Fate like I normally see it, and I'm expecting lore expansion, Fate spin-off of some sort, with hints of detective mystery and a very small sprinkle of classic Fate formula, and your thought is that sounds sort of appealing, I think most with any love for Fate will probably get a kick out of this series, as the way Magecraft is explored is exhilarating. All the past elements I never knew a whole lot about it are explained in decent detail, which is basically just drugs for me. Now, if this anime was just grown-up Waver, who yes, I'm going to continue calling him by that name because that's what I grew up with him as, even though he may have taken a new name. With that said, I actually think I would have enjoyed this anime a lot less if it was primarily just him. As with him interacting with the side cast, especially Grey, is what kinda sealed the deal for me. Right off the bat, I had my suspicions on who Grey was. Character models usually give it away, and if by some weird turn of events you're unsure of who she's supposed to look like in the early stages, I'll avoid saying, obviously, who she is. But honestly, Grey was one of the most interesting parts to this anime for me. Someone that by all technical rights is a fake and a copy, but emotionally and realistically is her own person, but clearly taught to be someone else. The relationship with her and Waver is something I really adored. He was someone in Fate Zero that even at a young age could make a conversation interesting, and even though at the time he wasn't a leader, seen by him tagging along more than he led himself, this tale has him leading characters such as her. As an adult with life experiences, he knows how to talk with troubled minds and guide them like he was once guided by his servant in the Holy Grail War. Grey's mystic code allows her to use powerful weapons and abilities, and her nearly identical appearance to one specific heroic spirit is very fascinating. You would think she is just this vessel for the spirit, but because of who guides her, she slowly becomes to accept herself as Grey, not a copy, meaning someday she may not hide away underneath that hood she covers her face with. Her little chant that she does before unleashing an attack is also probably the catchiest thing within this anime, that I have no idea why I love it as much as I do, but her saying Grey rave, crave, deprave, grave me, and then grave you over an extended period of time is oddly euphoric. This little chant comes up a few times when her abilities get activated, and she uses her holy lance as she feeds on all mana around her, and it's just the best thing ever. Now often Fate is praised for its insane fights and animation, primarily thanks to Studio Ufotable, who at this point have made the two best entries in my humble opinion, those being Fate Zero and also Heaven's Feel. Though what many didn't realize until this anime is that Studio Troika is a force to be reckoned with. This is a team who makes nearly every anime scene, even characters just standing around talking, goddamn beautiful, which we've seen Fate do before. They are all about highly refined and crisp character models. Add that style to action and you get something that won't make you miss Ufotable. Instead you'll think, yeah, there really are other teams that can nail the action we adore so much. The fights, while few, are plenty in terms of substance and quality. I especially love the numerous effects they use to make it feel as if there are blasts of magic back to back, meaning no human would be able to stand such an impact. Often with the other series, there are Holy Grail wars, so mixtures of typical heroic spirit action and magical blasts of energy. Here, it's much more focused on the magical sides of things, and the series does a great job at continuously spicing up the visual flair over its 13 episodes. Visually, this anime doesn't drastically dip. It's beautiful, plain and simple, which was honestly what I was expecting based on some of my past favorite works from this studio. So yeah, I kind of expected this show to be goddamn beautiful, which it was. But what really drives this home and makes this so compelling is that everything about this show, from the visuals to the characters and their storytelling, feels so Fate while also feeling so distant from what we've come to associate with this brand. Visually, you'll see characters like Waver, but with how they present themselves, it never feels like the same thing we've already experienced, but rather a new idea in this fantastic universe where characters have grown up, but also in some cases haven't grown up enough. You don't just need Holy Grail Wars to make these characters function. The best moments to this franchise is when characters get a heart-to-heart, but the aspects that do remind us of those past entries, or even ones we're looking forward to in the future, they find their own groove and get us excited, not because whoever wins will get their wish granted, but because either a criminal goes free or punished, which I didn't think I'd hear myself saying when discussing Fate, but here we are. Even when Waver is just teaching his class, or characters like Gray want to impress their teacher, it's wholesomely adorable, or at the very least fascinating. I enjoy learning about their world, how mystical anomalies occur, while I equally enjoy watching high school hijinks. Fate can give me insane action, or info dump world building, and I'll probably leave having had a good time. But this series is honestly one of the best structured balance of those two formulas. So even outside of the murder mystery scene here, I found myself having a hard time prying my eyes away from the screen, even for simple nutritional breaks like needing to eat. It's a very short series, sure, but even for 13 episodes, it's hard to pause even for a short while. I mean, when your opening song is just pure instrumentals and it gets you incredibly hyped up, you kinda can immediately tell it's not your average anime, especially not your average Fate-related series. It's such a beautiful world, from audio to visual design, that whatever was presented was gorgeous to look at or listen to. Then when the series really gets the engine going and we reach the train, that's where any doubts I might have had completely were tossed out the window, and I confidently knew this was an anime that knew what it was doing, getting us on board with the idea it was aiming for early on, so that when the main course arrived, we knew what this train ride was going to be, and it wasn't going to break for anyone or anything, meaning we were in for an adventure and then some. Hell, the last 2 episodes of this season were some of the standouts across the summer 2019 season as a whole, and that's saying something with as many strong episodes and series such as summer had. Though it may not be a popular opinion, I'd honestly go as far to say that this was one of the most memorable series within this universe for me. Now, the Nasu universe is bigger than just Fate, but for the sake of this video in particular, I'm only going to use Fate series as my reference for what I'm about to say. Though I've grown number to Fate over the years, I have enjoyed pretty much all anime with Fate attached to their name minus a few exceptions. And while I don't think this is a masterpiece like I would call something such as Fate Zero and Heaven's Feel, I do have it up there with some of my top Fate series that I call exceptional, such as Unlimited Blade Works. It's a completely different style that we're used to, but that's what makes it so extraordinary. When we eventually got the Waver focus anime, I thought it would just be another Holy Grail War, but instead what this 13 episode season delivered was more tailored toward murder mysteries and cute scenes revolving around new and familiar faces, providing for some incredible action, hilarious banter, fantastic world building, and heart-tugging drama. It feels completely Fate without any of the negative baggage that most series end up with by the end of their run. Avoiding a cluttered cast with a more structured storytelling approach really let this series flourish, which I believe believe the source material being a novel helped massively, as instead of adapting a game with multiple story routes, you have a much more precise and clear-cut way to make this series work in animation form, and did they ever. Even if you're burnt out on Fate, maybe you eat it all up, or you're kinda skeptical to try out any new ones, maybe try giving a few episodes of this at least a chance. I didn't care for the prequel episode that aired before the full season was released, but from episode 1 onwards, I was honestly a Lord Elmaloy fan through and through, and maybe you can be too. Now hey, that's just my opinion on this little Fate murder mystery style series with a lot of lore building. It's goddamn weird and I love it. If you have your own thoughts, be sure to let me know yours down in the comment section below. Always remember to leave a like if you did enjoy my ramblings, and be sure to subscribe if you happen to be new around here. Now lastly, there's my Patreon for those who want to go the extra mile and help support what I do around here even more. That is if you so wish. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.